The mist hung heavy over the rotting bog, swirling with unnatural life as the coven prepared for the onslaught. Deep within the gnarled ruins of a long-forgotten shrine, the Arch-Hag Morga crouched over a bubbling cauldron, her fingers trailing through the viscous black ichor as she whispered vile incantations. Her daughters in darkness, the Night Hag, Vesmira, and the Burr Hag, Ysgryth, circled around her, their sunken eyes alight with a cruel anticipation. From the gossamer strands of their weavings they had unforeseen coming of interlopers, an adventuring party of warriors, mages, and priests who had dared to intrude upon the marsh in search of their heads. Now the battle would begin. First among the adventurers was the foolhardy paladin, his sword gleaming with divine radiance as he charged through the threshold of the ruined shrine. Morga merely flicked her wrists, and the very ground beneath him churned into a pit of writhing, grasping hands. Ethereal spectres of the damned clawed at his legs, their walls like shards of ice being driven into the mind. He fought valiantly, but with each strike his blade grew heavier, his righteous strength sapped by the lingering whispers of doubt that coiled around his thoughts. A ranger loosed an arrow, its head silvered and blessed, but before it could find its mark, Vesmira exhaled a miasma of noxious vile mist. It seeped into the ranger's lungs, coiling through his veins like writhing serpents. His eyes glazed over, his fingers tensed around his bowstring. Without warning, he turned, loosing an arrow into the back of an own ally. Panic flickered in his eyes, but the hag's magic had held fast. His body was no longer his command. He knocked another arrow, his own horrified voice buried beneath Vesmira's delighted cackle. The cleric, undeterred, raised a sacred sigil and called upon the light of his god. Radiance poured forth, burning away the shadows, and for a moment the tide seemed to turn. The hags recoiled, their illusions flickering like candlelight in the wind. But Ysgryth merely extended a gnarled hand and whispered an ancient rhyme, summoning a frost-choked wind that froze the holy light mid-air, dulling its brilliance before it could reach them. Realizing the battle had turned, Morga let out a shrill laugh.
"You think you can slay me? An archlet cannot die by your feeble hands. Only in the presence of my anathema am I truly vulnerable."
She crooned, her voice layered with a dozen others, each echoing with malevolent mirth. With a final, clawed gesture, she wove a final parting curse into the air, an oath of endless night. Shadows coiled around the adventurers, whispering their names, promising they would never again sleep without seeing the hag's grin lurking in the darkness behind their eyes. Then, in an instant, the hags were gone. The swamp swallowed their forms like a mother reclaiming her children. The adventurers, battered and broken, were staggered from the ruined shrine, their bodies intact but their souls marked forever. For though they had survived, they had not won. Welcome. Today's video is on the Arch-Hag. First, let's talk about what the monster manual tells you. So there's a lot of lore to go over here. So Arch-Hags, as their title implies, are the pinnacle of hags. They are nigh unkillable, evil fae which inhabit wondrous lairs throughout the plains. They are narcissistic and conniving beings with unknowable goals. Arch-Hags are compilers of secrets and forbidden knowledge from across the plains. They may be willing to share such knowledge, but it comes at a cost. In typical fae fashion, they don't desire gold, but precious memories, years of one's life, or even the ability to feel emotions. Arch-Hags are powerful, but often work through intermediaries to avoid battle wherever possible. If forced into combat, the hag uses spectral claws, arcing lightning, and spellcasting to snuff out their foes. An Arch-Hag possesses powerful, disabling curses which inhibit their foes' ability to fight back. If, somehow, the hag is hurt, it can cast plane shift away to avoid death. Moreover, if a hag would be killed, it is instead transported to a demi-plane, and in doing so, curses any creature within 60 feet of it. Creatures cursed this way, our location is known by the Arch-Hag, regardless of what plane they're on. You may be wondering how such a monster could be killed. Well, that is a secret known to few in the multiverse. The method involves an object called an anathema. This is an object different for each Arch-Hag, which embodies a fateful encounter from the Arch-Hag's past, such as the D10 listed on screen, or any similarly rare item decided by the DM. The Arch-Hag isn't weakened in the presence of the anathema, but instead it can be killed if reduced to 0 while the item is within 30 feet of the Arch-Hag. Arch-Hags are so magical and powerful that they have layers which possess layer effects. Such layers can range from demi-planes to a mansion atop a storm cloud. The most famous Arch-Hag, Baba Yaga, Mother of the Witched, her lair is a hut on top of a pair of giant chicken legs. There are 2 layers effects that are detailed in the monster manual. This includes Lapsus Linguae and Meddlesome Magic. Lapsus Linguae forces creatures not aligned with the hag to subtract a d10 from any ability checks while taking the influence action within 1 mile of the lair. The Meddlesome Magic forces any creature not allied with the Arch-Hag who finishes a long rest within 1 mile of the lair to cast confusion on themselves the next time they would cast a spell that isn't a cantrip. If the hag is killed or moves its lair, the effect ends immediately. So next we'll talk about stats. Again, there's a lot to go over. But the stats of an Arch-Hag are impressive, and I use the word comprehensive in my notes. I think that's a light way of saying there's just a lot of rules to go through. So let's get into this. They are large fey creatures which have a CR of 21. They have an AC of 20 and 333 HP. Their initiative is an impressive plus 16, and its movement is 40 feet, giving it the ability to act fast and maneuver around the battlefield. The 6 core stats of an Arch-Hag are thematically very high. 3 of the stats are superhuman, an additional 2 are 19, so the hag can stand a good chance of succeeding any saves thrown at it. Even if the hag somehow fails a check, they're said to have legendary resistance. It's 4 times per day normally, but 5 if they're in their lair. The Arch-Hag is no joke in social encounters, having an incomprehensible plus 21 in persuasion rolls, allowing it to do the impossible. Like all hags, the Arch-Hag can access coven magic, which in the presence of 2 other hags. I think the implication is that if needed, the Arch-Hag can band together with 2 lesser hags, like Burr hags or Night hags, to access such magic. I get the impression that Arch-Hags are exceedingly rare, and combined with their combat prowess, you're not expected to throw with 3 Arch-Hags at a party. I think even a full party of level 20 characters would struggle against 1 Arch-Hag, never mind a full coven of them. Aiding their saving throws even more, Arch-Hags are said to have magic resistance against spells and magical effects. The Arch-Hag also has a Spiteful Escape, which I mentioned earlier but will fully cover now. If the Arch-Hag is dropped to 0, while not in the presence of the anathema, it will instead drop to 1 and be teleported to a harmless demi-plane. If an Arch-Hag teleports this way, it cannot return to the plane it died in for 2d6 days. When the hag teleports this way, it curses each creature that was within 60 feet of it, and it knows their location anywhere in the multiverse. In combat, the Arch-Hag makes good use of its actions, getting 2 attacks and the use of its Crackling Wave ability in 1 action. The attacks are called Spectral Claws. They can be used as a melee or a ranged attack interchangeably, both dealing 3d6 plus 7 damage on a hit, and knocking the target prone. The Crackling Wave is a 60-foot cone, forcing a DC 22 dex save, or dealing 5d12 lightning. And fail or save, it curses the affected creature, making them lose their reactions until the curse ends. To combo with the curses, as a bonus action, the hag can inflict 46 lightning damage to each cursed creature within 60 feet of it. The Arch-Hag also possesses powerful spellcasting, such as Plane Shift, Dimension Door, and Mass Suggestion. The hag may also cast Counter Spell using its reaction without expending a spell slot. And then if the spell's caster fails and the spell's countered, the creature is cursed and cannot supply the verbal components for spellcasting, and whenever they speak, they say the opposite of whatever they mean. Lastly, being such a powerful monster, the Arch-Hag has legendary actions 3 times per turn, or 4 in their lair. There are 2 options, including 1 Spectral Claw attack and a once per turn casting of either Dimension Door or Hypnotic Pattern. So in conclusion, the Arch-Hag is among the strongest and hardest to kill enemies even ever put to paper. I love the incidental curses that are dished out, as well as the efficiency in regards to action economy the monster has. I feel this is a common complaint of mine, but I would like more spells, but that is an easy fix for DMs to add where appropriate. I also would have liked a description of how a hag, say a Burr hag, a Night hag, a Sea hag, becomes a Arch-Hag, and maybe some estimate as to how many of these creatures exist in the multiverse. I guess the impression that it's not many, as the only named Arch-Hag is Baba Yaga, but the book does detail 10 different anathemas, so my guess is that there should be at least 10 Arch-Hags. My favorite feature is the existence of the anathema. I like it when monsters have tricks, and this almost unknowable weakness is a plot device built into the creature. I can just imagine a party going to great lengths and adventures just to discover and acquire these anathemas. My present experience with Arch-Hags is limited, besides the Coven of Hags I faced in Well Beyond the Witchlight, in which I think the Hags had weaknesses to defeat them in the same way the Arch-Hag does. I have to imagine that the writing of that book, The Well Beyond the Witchlight, inspired this entry in the Arch-Hag. Overall, I love this monster and will definitely be running in the next opportunity I get. I'm going to give the monster a 19 out of 20.